So for those of you who don't know, I have a party at my house once a year. It's called Skullfest. We try to invite as many people as we can. It usually ends up being between 60 and 80 people. My house is only so big where I would invite everybody. Actually, I think the last time we were here, we were actually legitimately concerned about weight in the house from the amount of people. And it's a 24-hour party. We provide lunch, dinner, dessert, breakfast, and then you got to be on your way from noon to noon. And in 2019, which was the last time we had Skullfest because of the pandemic, apparently afterwards, some folks started to talk about a gift possibility for me. And without going into too much of the specifics, a bunch of guys banded together and contributed some money and bought this Grimlock statue. And then Jason brought it to my house and surprised me with it as it being a gift when I thought I was just reviewing his copy. So I have it together, and it's not going to be a typical review, but I am going to talk to you a bit about it. And then after we get the kind of objective and subjective opinions regarding it out of the way, I'll talk to you a bit more about how I feel about it. In the meantime, please enjoy the video and pictures while I lament. So we'll start with the negative. I am in no means a statue expert. I have one XM statue, a bunch of sideshow stuff, and now 2 Imaginarium art statues. And I can tell you that the Imaginarium art statues are the poorest made of the 3. They look beautiful, and we'll get to that in the positives, but they don't fit together super well. They're very brittle, and there's QC issues. For instance, Wheelie came assembled when the instructions show that he's supposed to come disassembled so that you can put them together. But because he came assembled, the box packaging put pressure against parts that shouldn't have pressure and broke them into 3 pieces right out of the box. Now, in the midst of putting this together, we had a couple more pieces break. Just little pieces, little pointy bits, little bits that stick out here and there. And part of that is because it doesn't fit together super well. Now, the statues that fit together super well use a lot of magnetic connections and perfect fits, and this has some magnetic connections, and guess what? They fit perfectly. However, not all the connections here are magnetic, and those that aren't rarely fit well. Add on top of that just putting the thing together, we encountered 3 breaks, one of which was right out of the box and had nothing to do with us. And it is disheartening, especially when something carries this price tag with it. I'll also say the instructions are terrible. Planet X level of terrible. It's absolutely impossible to figure out what you're supposed to do and in what order. They're on one poster board, and what you really need is an entire book with a step-by-step process of exactly what pieces to put together in what order. That's my negative. Moving on to the positive. Every element of this is beautifully painted. Every element of this is beautifully sculpted. If I were to be nitpicky, it's a little weird that Grimlock's arms are black and gold. That seems like a bizarre choice, but outside of that, even those 2 colors are painted on beautifully. There's so much action. One Sharkticon in robot mode, kind of getting a grip onto Grimlock's tail. Another Sharkticon biting onto his leg, one climbing onto his back, one headed towards his face, with Grimlock screaming while tearing apart another Sharkticon that he stepped on and destroyed, all the while Wheelie on his back with a slingshot ready to take out the one on his tail. I'll also go out here on a limb and tell you that my wife said, "Oh no, Ollie's broken," which gave me a little bit of pride. It's also super heavy, so make sure you have a good place to put it if you're thinking about getting it. And it's also very large. So take all those things into consideration: weight, height, width, etc. But every aspect of it is sculpted and painted to the nines, and that is ultimately 2/3 of the battle with the statue. The other third would be the build, and as I've already said, that's where some of the issues lie here. And at its price point, especially competing price point wise in a field where companies are putting things together in a far more professional manner, it does leave a lot to be desired there. And now that I've got the kind of review element out of the way, you're going to have to let me get in my feelings for a minute. Bear with me. Let me tell you about what this means to me. I've been doing this now for 6 years, and around the 4.5, 5-year mark, I started to feel fairly disenfranchised with it. Not totally, but it is almost like a side job now. And I donate around 24 hours a week to this stuff, whether it's podcasts, Patreon content, or YouTube content. And sometimes it's very easy to live in a vacuum where it feels relatively thankless, especially when you're inundated with comments from little filthy McNasties who it's obvious their parents have never taught them anything about manners, general kindness, or being polite. And that can have a negative impact on what you do when you're inundated with that and you don't necessarily get the other. Or even when you get the other, you don't notice it as much because it doesn't sting as much, right? And with this, there's something about it. and I can't even tell you exactly what, but there's something about it that has made all of this for me worthwhile. And it's not the piece. It's not like I did this for a statue. It's the generosity and the appreciation that the statue represents that I feel like everything was paid in full. And more so, in many ways, I feel like I should just stop doing all of this because the way this made me feel will never be comparable to anything else that I'll experience while doing this sort of content. I can't express what it means. There are very few things in my life that have ever left me speechless, but this would be one of them. It was always my intention to have this thing sitting in the middle of my Maja case. When I spec'd out the Maja case, the goal was always for this thing to sit in the middle of it. And it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy or something, or like the universe works in mysterious ways where it is the center of everything to me in a way. And it sits in the middle of my collection for quarter scale statues as a reminder, a constant reminder to me every time I walk past it, that the squeaky wheels shouldn't always get the grease. That I should spend far less time concerning myself or feeling away or allowing anything from the filthy McNasties to impinge or cloud, shroud, or taint what I'm doing. That there are people out there that really care and really appreciate what I do and needed me to know it. To be fair, Patreon has given me that as well, that validation in a way of, okay, people really care. But this was the nail in the coffin, or the spark of the life, perhaps is a better expression. Speaking of expressions that I'm unable to fulfill, I also can't express how much this means to me. It is my entire channel, charities, art stuff, podcasts, conventions, friendships, wrapped into one piece. And it is probably the most meaningful piece in my collection. I was also gifted a card, and I'm supposed to get like I think like a 11 by 14 or something, like a larger size of this too, that I'm going to frame and hang on my wall. That was a thank you card. And on the back, it said, Bobby, you have been a leader in the community, an example of honesty and integrity that inspires loyalty and promotes camaraderie. You've been there for community members and their families during hard times and given them hope when hope seemed bleak. Your selfish dedication to benefit others knows no bounds. You have given so much of your time and yourself over the years that we felt compelled to honor you. From all of us, we present you this gift as an appreciation of all you have done for the community. We love you. And I would like to thank you guys as well. Nick and Kate B, Brian Brink, Joe B and family, JD and Chan, Eric B, Bricks on the Dollar, Ace, Paul C, Chuck C, David, Energon Addict, Jose, Herrick and BX, Robert D. Toff and family, Anna and Russ, Eric E, Maya and Misty, Tyler F, Peanut, Gort, co-host of Force Sensitive, Skinny Vinny, Justin and Loretta, Jason and Bethany, Max and Amber, Dust Mites, Raul, Troy, Esteban, and Alicia, Cody the King, Marilyn Phil, Calum, Jisk, Rogue War Mike, and lastly, New York Mike, who contributed and we lost last year. And now, not that I ever would forget him, but I feel like I see him every day. Also, Jason had told me that when the news started circulating around TFCon, that people were coming up to him and giving him $5 here, $10 there, and he had lost track of everybody. So to all the other people that contributed as well, thank you. I am honored by this. I am humbled by this. I'm grateful for this, and I don't deserve this. And I'm forever appreciative and in your debt. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Till next time, take care.